Ever feel like you're working harder and harder but just not getting anywhere? Like you're stuck on a treadmill? Well, there's a reason for that. Today, we're going to unpack a path to building wealth that has nothing to do with luck. It's about a specific mindset and a set of skills you can actually learn, all inspired by the thinking of investor Naval Ravikant.
Right off the bat, this one idea just shatters everything we're taught about work, right? You know, get a good job, put in the hours, and trade that time for a paycheck. But here's the catch. As long as your income is directly tied to the hours you work, there's a hard limit on what you can earn. Real freedom, financial freedom, is found somewhere else entirely.
You know, it reminds me of the story about a farmer named Lucas. This guy was the hardest worker you could imagine. Up before the sun, worked all day, never wasted a single second. And yet, he was always just barely getting by. He was completely trapped, trading all of his life's energy for just enough to survive. And he was sure there was some secret he was missing. Then one day, a wise old man points out the difference between a millstone and a windmill. He says, "Lucas, the millstone is what you're doing now. It only grinds grain when you are physically pushing it. But the windmill, now that's different. It captures an outside force, the wind, to do the work for you, even when you're asleep." And that, right there, is the huge mental shift we've got to make, moving from pure raw effort to leveraged effort. So, this brings us to our first big idea, the hard work trap. It's this belief that if you just work hard enough, you'll eventually succeed. And look, hard work is non-negotiable. You absolutely need it, but it's only half the equation. Working hard in the wrong direction is a surefire way to get exhausted and stay broke.
At the very core of this trap is the time for money trade. You work an hour, you get paid for an hour. Simple. And it doesn't matter if you're a barista or a top-tier surgeon. Unless you own a piece of the business, your income is capped by the number of hours in a day. You can't scale yourself, you're just Lucas pushing that heavy millstone day in and day out.
Okay, so if trading time for money is the trap, how in the world do you escape? Well, it all starts with understanding what the real goal is. See, most of us are out here chasing money, when what we should be building is wealth. And believe me, they are two completely different things. Just look at this breakdown. It changes everything. Money is basically a receipt for work you've already done. It's a stand-in for value. But wealth is the engine that works for you. It's the assets that are earning, growing, and kicking off cash while you're not even looking. Money is a tool. Wealth is the whole factory. So, what does this wealth stuff actually look like? Well, it could be a piece of software that customers are using all over the world while you're sleeping. It could be a rental property that brings in income every month, a portfolio of stocks, a business. It's any system you own that generates value without you having to be there trading your time. It is your own personal windmill. Okay, this is all great in theory, but how do we actually build these things? This brings us to the core formula, the real engine of this whole idea. Productize yourself. It's a two-step plan for turning what makes you unique into a wealth-generating asset. Let's break that down. Step one is all about finding what you're naturally good at. I mean, what's the stuff that feels like play to you, but looks like hard work to everybody else? That's your secret weapon. And then, step two is about amplifying it. You take that unique skill and you find a way to scale it up, to detach it from your own time so you can serve thousands of people, not just one at a time.
So how do you find this so-called uniqueness? Well, here's a great little trick. Think back to when you were a kid. What did you do for fun? What did you get lost in for hours? Were you the kid who was always taking things apart to see how they worked? Or maybe you were amazing at persuading your friends to play the game you wanted to play. Your most authentic, powerful skills are often hiding right there, disguised as childhood obsessions.
And here's the key. This is not about being the #1 best in the world at some single skill. It's about combining your skills into a unique stack that nobody else has. Maybe you're really into ancient history, but you're also a pretty good graphic designer. That combination is way more powerful and rare than just being another designer. You're the only one standing at that specific intersection.
All right, so you've found your unique skill stack. Now, how do you amplify it? The answer is leverage. Leverage is the tool that multiplies your effort. It's the wind that powers your windmill. And there are really three main kinds you can use. First, you've got labor. This is having people work for you. It's the oldest form of leverage in the book, but man, it can be really complicated and messy. Second is capital, or money. Using money to make more money. This was the big one in the 20th century. Think Warren Buffett. But the third kind, the one that's changing everything, that's code and media. Think software, podcasts, YouTube videos, blogs, books.
So what makes this new form of leverage so incredibly powerful? It's that it's permissionless. Think about it. To get people to work for you, you need their permission. To get capital, you need investors to give you their permission. But to write some code, or start a YouTube channel, or write an article online, you don't need to ask anyone. You can just do it.
And the scale here is just mind-boggling. With labor or capital, there are always limits. But with code and media, the potential scale is practically infinite. You can create a piece of software one time, and it can be copied and sold 1,000,000 times over for basically zero extra cost. This is how the new fortunes are being made. It is the ultimate window.
But here's the thing about leverage. It's a massive amplifier. It amplifies your successes, but it also amplifies your mistakes. A bad decision with huge leverage can be catastrophic. And that brings us to the final and maybe the most important piece of this whole puzzle, judgment.
Here's a great way to think about it. Effort is how fast you're rowing the boat. Judgment is picking which direction to row in. In a world with massive leverage, a single great decision is worth more than a lifetime of hard work going the wrong way. The question changes from, am I working hard enough, to, am I working on the right thing? And the value of good judgment is just astronomical. Think about a huge company. A CEO who makes decisions that are just 10% better than the alternative can create billions of dollars of extra value. That's why they get paid so much. They're not getting paid for their time. They're getting paid for the quality of their decisions.
So, how do you develop better judgment? It really boils down to having a super deep understanding of the basics. The physicist Richard Feynman famously said that if you can't explain something in simple terms, you don't really get it. Good judgment isn't about using fancy words. It's about having crystal clear thinking about how things actually work.
So let's bring this all together. What is the end game here? It's simple. You have to own equity. Equity is a piece of a business. It's your ownership stake. It could be shares in your own company, stock options at your job, or a portfolio of other businesses. A salary will pay your bills. Equity is what will make you wealthy. It's your stake in the windmill, not just your pay for pushing the stone.
And that really brings us to the final question I want to leave you with. When you look at your own career, your own life, ask yourself honestly, are you just pushing a millstone, or are you actively building a windmill? Which one of these levers, labor, capital, or code and media, is working for you right now? And which one could you start building for your future?